This is as groovy as it gets.
Oprah, Can You Hear Me? Oprah vs. Donald 2020 is a conversation by Julie Benetti and Susan Barbaro and a production of EI Alliance, copyright 2019. America is courtesy of New Threads off their new album, Felonious Wilma. Hi, this is Julie and I'm back with Susan and we're still talking about Trump because again, I don't know, it's a more interesting Twitter feed than Oprah. So
what we're going to talk about now is, of course, like we go into the energy, we're going to talk about a very specific thing, but of course it relates to the election, which is really what we're talking about.
Right, what we're talking about, exactly, election 2020. And I have to say, from our last podcast, we were talking about central casting, we were talking about the campaign trailer that the Trump campaign came out with and his Game of Thrones meme, and I also want to mention, because, you know, all the hype is about the Mueller report that's out that people are printing up and selling, and all I could think of is, it's like Donald Trump's screenplay. It really is like a screenplay. People are reading it like, oh, this is what he said, this is what occurred, this is what he said, this is the dialogue. It's a freaking screenplay. Again, we're back in Hollywood.
Right.
You know, and so, some whatever in the past, some people have said, oh, it's like, you know, the reality TV president, blah, blah, blah. But it's funny because, you know, people are enthralled by Hollywood and he's using that symbolism.
And, you know, Ronald Reagan, Ronald Reagan said he didn't understand how anyone could who could be a president without having that Hollywood, you know, background, having been an actor.
Right, that's
he
right.
had said that, and he was, again, one of the greatest presidents. I mean, anyone you talk, not everyone, I can't ever make that, but a lot of people think that Reagan was one of the best presidents that we've ever had.
Right.
And that's what he said, so,
yeah, that's true. And, you know, you reminded me that it's April.
Yes,
and
I did.
So going back to April 2016.
In April 2016, Julie and I were writing the book, Donald J. Trump, do you stand with him? Who does he stand with? The science and energy behind Trump. And looking back, we should have made that, you know, like just science and energy with Trump.
I know.
It's like a big mouthful, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, that'll be the newer one when we update it.
Yeah.
We'll change it. Anyways, we were sitting down and we were looking at science principles because you so brilliantly said, we need to, you know, everybody was saying, what's going on with Trump? How is he winning? And everyone was just talking about hearsay and, you know, bad mouthing and doing all the stuff that really it's just he said and this one said that and the other one said that. There was no real facts behind anything. So, of course, because you and I work with energy, we like to look at it and what does the energy tell us? We sat down in April 2016.
Yep.
And when we were working on it, the two of us all of a sudden took a breath and looked at each other, and we both got, and we looked at each other and we knew it. He's going to win.
Yep.
And there was no rationale. It wasn't like, oh, we're for him, or we're going to go out. It was just like, let's look at the energy, and oh my God, he's going to win.
Right.
And between April and November, there was all this stuff that happened, all these things that would make you say he's not going to win.
Right.
And again, people are very clear and want to say he didn't win the popular vote. But guess what? He's president. So that's when people say, you know, you can create your own reality and it doesn't matter what it looks like on the outside, because if you're very clear about the energy, you're going to get what you see, even if outside doesn't support it. That was a great example.
Right.
And so it is now April 2019. I mean, it's a year and, you know, 6 months before the election. But, you know, we started talking about the Mueller report.
Right.
And you said you were watching, was it Rachel Maddow?
Yeah, I was watching some news programs. I was flipping around because, you know, we're the perfect people to kind of talk about the energy because I'm not political.
Right.
You know, I'm not going to go out and make a political stance. And so we're not talking politics.
Right.
We're talking about people. We're not being personal, but we're talking about energy. What's going on in the energy? And yeah, blah, blah, blah. People are energy. Go on with that. Yet, you know, in consuming and just whatever, and I don't watch tons and tons of news at all, but I just flip it on and the energy kind of reports this is what's going on. And I was watching the news, and the news, I think it was Rachel Maddow again, who was reporting on the different presidents that had to leave office, Clinton being impeached and how he made a deal, but after, right around that time, and then he, how none of the presidents...
Well, he was impeached, but he never left office.
Right.
Whereas Nixon, who was impeached, he resigned.
Right.
And then
was pardoned, right,
by Ford when he became...
by Ford, exactly. Yeah. And what I think she was, as I was sitting here and we were talking earlier in the last podcast, I said, wait a minute, right afterwards, because I started to put, A plus B equals C. And basically, the report was coming out from this news that, basically, no president has really kind of gone to jail for their crimes and stuff. And so then it was reported, what the time factor was, that they had to be tried for these crimes, and it resides within what would be the second term of President Trump.
Well, again, so, whatever the statute of limitations which you think is like, you said for Trump, you think it would be like 2022?
Something like that. I think that was, if I'm correct. So it was like, and so I started to think, wait a minute, that would be in his second, would be quote unquote a second term for President Trump.
It wouldn't be the current term.
Exactly.
It wouldn't be the current term.
It wouldn't be the current term. And when I started to think about that, because of what was said in the news, and you often, have to listen differently, and you always say I listen differently to things.
You do.
And I thought, okay, here's the report about what's going on, and oh my God, the Mueller report, and oh my God, what happened, and then what has happened with other presidents, and then no president has gone to jail. And I realized, wait, what are you saying? And so basically, it was almost as the prediction I felt. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy that he would become president again.
Yeah, we were talking about that. And I said to you before we started the podcast, I'm like, this is where I'm going. Are you good with it?
Yes.
And we are both getting. It's because, he's going to win. Because before, we had a lot of conversations about Trump and would he want to run again after he's been there. It's like everything, like, oh my God, I want it. You get it. And you're like, what the heck do I want to be here for? I mean, Michelle Obama is notorious for saying, like, we couldn't get out of the White House fast enough. So why would he want to? And so if this is a question of, what's going to occur, well, there's his motivation for running, and I'm going to let you call it, because what would that do? What did he just create for himself?
Well, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah,
it's a hole-in-one right there.
And one of the concepts that we talk about is contrast.
Right.
He needed to create something in the background that kind of kicks him in the butt to say, you got to do this now. He can't turn, because we always...
oh my gosh, you just hit the nail on the head, because... there are no candidates. We're here saying Oprah, hello, because she would be the Hollywood that would blow him out of the water. He's got no candidates. So now what does he have? He just has he's got the contrast, which he can feel even stronger. He's going to win.
Yes. That's where I said to you, I'm like, are you okay saying it? Because this is not it's you feel the energy of it, and you see that no one's coming, unless someone's going to come out of the woodwork at some point, like in Oprah. She's going to get her act together if she wants to. And honestly, I don't even know if he has this kind of a contrast, I don't know if she could do it. I don't know if she could do it, because this was something new, as you said. I'm like, oh my God, he just created that. So of course he's, you know why I'm going to say it, because there's no one to play. I always go into this whole thing about tennis. If you could only play me, I'm not playing the stupid game, because I stink. Anyone could beat me, right? But if Serena Williams steps up and says, I'll play you, whoa, I'm going to do this now. And so if there's nobody stepping in to say, hey, we're going to challenge you, he's got to create his own challenge.
Right. And there you go. There's a huge challenge right there. And so what does that mean for all the other career politicians And, the career politician part is really important. And we did another podcast on this, and we could go even further because, what does that mean? And I'm not going to kind of lower ourselves into a condition of just being people, but we are just people. Mm-hmm. And, all these career politicians that get up and have their platforms and are talking about what they're talking about, I mean, it's always the same stuff.
Well, it's because they're not them. They're saying the rhetoric that people tell you. I mean, I'm going to go someplace that I've said plenty of times to my kids, whatever. And I look at Hillary Clinton, and I think, back in the day, 20 years ago now, it's 30 years ago, or 40 years ago, whatever. When she first came out, she was brilliant. I would have supported her in a heartbeat. She was strong, powerful, smart. But something happened. And she let a lot of things go and married Bill Clinton, and kind of, I don't want to say rode his coattails because it's probably a sore subject, and not that I want to go into it, except that it seemed as though from that point she sort of, quote, played the role. They said, you need to do this, and then when you do that, we'll do this, and when you do this, and I think a lot of career politicians sort of follow the leader, like this is what you do, and you have to do it this way, and along the way you kind of lose your zest for what's important to you.
Right.
And for somebody, and we, again, in our career politician podcast, we talk about somebody who's, we use salt of the earth, like just someone who's very grounded in who they are, and can come in and say, this is really what I want to do.
Right.
And move in that kind of a space. And again, we also mentioned Oprah, because Oprah can also come from a different way.
Exactly.
A different avenue, saying, I'm Oprah.
Exactly.
I can do this. And she has, I'll say the clout, although I'm even starting to question that myself. But, the career politician who's come up that way, it's actually gets boring. And, I'm again, I say it a lot, and I feel bad. At some point, Elizabeth Warren, I'll bump into her somewhere, and she'll be like, you're so mean to me. And I'm not being mean. I actually think of what we're talking about isn't mean. It isn't name-calling. It's actually a little push to anyone who we reach out. It's like the whole, the Don Rickles effect.
Right.
When he made fun of you, you knew you were somebody.
Exactly.
And not that we're Don Rickles, but I'm not doing it to make fun of somebody. I want to say to Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, or anybody else that's stepping in that space. There's so many, I could never name them all. That would be a whole podcast in itself.
A couple at least.
But what we're saying to her is, this whole let's have a beer together is BS. That makes no sense. Who are you? And again, we said this in a previous podcast too. All she talks about is impeaching Trump. What has that got to do with me as a citizen, even in your same home state? What has that got to do with me?
I know.
Really?
And I told you, driving over here, I passed, people, out golfing in the rain.
Yeah.
People planting flowers in their garden. People washing their car, walking their dog, running laps. And why am I saying this? Because that's the basic person. I mean, you're living your life.
Right.
I mean, are they standing there looking, going, the Russians, the Russians, the Russians? No. Well, I mean, are they worried about their grandchildren? And said, yeah, because traditionally you do worry about your family and those you love and what the world and the environment is going to be like. But all this talk about, it's focused. It's funny because, I say to you, it's all this stuff is focused on President Trump and, the lying and the Russians and yada, 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 quote unquote. And yet, I ask you, do you know anything he's doing?
I know.
Do we know
about immigration? But he still is. We don't really know what's going on. I mean, because we're not that close to him either. Like we don't have. I don't want to use the word intimate because God knows where people go with it, but we don't have those intimate conversations with them.
Right.
And yet then all you hear is the bullying from. I'm not going to mention names, but those in Hollywood, because of course they appear to be the most powerful, and of course then next to that's politicians, saying things, and you feel as though if you don't agree with them,
right,
then something's wrong with you.
Right.
And that's why, it was funny. We did the whole Me Too at some point, and, we didn't know that was going to become a movement. We did a little, I think it was an Instagram post, and we put the little in Me Too. And the idea behind it is everybody's secretly behind Trump.
Yeah.
They want to see him win. And, and those who don't, there's a lot, and I'm not saying we're for him, but a lot of the people that don't, what you hear is they're repeating gossip.
Right.
Because we don't know the truth. We just hear what certain people say, and they repeat gossip. And I personally have no respect for that.
Exactly.
Whether it's gossip for anybody, I would much rather, again, we go to the energy.
Right.
And by us talking about whoever we're talking about, we're actually trying to say to do the same thing. Think for yourself. And you know what? Take the principles that he's using and use them for yourself instead of fighting him and use them for yourself.
And from day one, we've been intrigued by the energy.
Right.
And what is all this energy that's whirlpooling around him, and what is he doing with it? And nobody's asked that still. I mean, he's been in office and nobody's asked that still.
But they like the secret.
I know. They like the secret.
So secret. It's like he's actually, what we did in the book, he was a great example of if you want to ever see the secret in, at work.
And it's so much more than the secret.
I know. I say that just because people can relate.
People are in science, and this is. My niece read it and understood all of it. It's just science principles.
Wait a minute. Your niece read the Trump book, not the secret. We were clear.
Not the secret. No,
she read the Trump book.
The Trump book
because it's science,
right? And it's science. And she was in early high school at that time, and she was like, "Yes, it's all science principles."
Right. And it's what he's doing with it. And you know what? My daughter had a situation where she found out how to do something, and it worked to her benefit, and it works because it's helping her what she wants to do, and some other people got mad and they're all upset about it, and I said, you know what? Everybody has the opportunity to figure out how can I do this to make it work for me? Not that they have to repeat what someone else has done. But most people are lazy and would much rather point the finger and say, this one can do this, and instead of turning around saying, geez, I can use this. How can I use this? Not to get back at someone or to be the boss or the winner. It's for me to have what I want in my life. Exactly. And nobody does that. They'd rather sit there and point the finger and whine.
Exactly. And it's funny because these principles in here, and I'm not going to rehash the book because you can find it, you can find it as an ebook or as a paperback. But, there was a point in time, even about going, we talked about to the correspondence dinner.
Oh, yeah.
And President Trump replied, I'm a positive person. I have positive thoughts. And, that's the first principle we have here, the power of positive thinking.
Right.
And he's working with energy. Hello, everybody. And, it would be cool to have that other candidate. We kind of go, we work with energy. Right. So we can get it. Hello.
Right.
We can, call a duck. Hello.
But it doesn't matter what it looks like at the moment, what it looks like outside of you in your environment. Right. It actually can change on a dime.
Exactly. And, working with the energy doesn't mean, like you said, the gossip and the reactions to, what President Trump is doing. And if that's all of the sound bites that the media is presenting, it's obvious that, that's not the news we need to hear. And we need to see and we need to absorb. What is the real energy of what's going on?
The news things, I just want to say one thing. They are a business. And let's face it, the biggest business, I'm going to say, in the world. We got computers, but it's Hollywood. That's the biggest business. And how do they make their money? By hitting your adrenals, making you scared, making you cry, making you happy, all while you're watching just a movie. It's not reality. Right. It's just a made-up story, and you react. And you know something? The news, they got to keep up because there's 24 hours a day of news. How do they do it? They got to somehow hit your adrenals.
Exactly. And so where do we go from there?
So here's the deal at this point. Here's the takeaway from this. is, first of all, if you want your adrenals hit and you want to, have the feeling that some people thrive on, watch a movie, watch TV, listen to music, look at art, and have the response. Getting that feeling from hearsay, from gossip, is really you're being manipulated. Mm-hmm. So at least if you're going to be manipulated, let it be a movie that you, like you said, you go see Jason and Friday the 13th or whatever, and I'm going to be manipulated, but I'm consenting to it. Mm-hmm. Don't be manipulated without your consent. Mm-hmm. And then the second thing that I'm going to say is that we're listening to this and watching what's happening, and when we look at the contrast and we figure out now what's going on with Trump in this Mueller report, that completely changes the game. And I'm going to say what we said a little bit earlier in the podcast, that Trump's going to win. Mm-hmm. He is going to win in 2020. I don't care who comes in. And if Oprah is going to step in that ring, which we've talked about, she has got to up her game significantly. Can she do it? I thought earlier on, there was a possibility that she wants to up her game, but I'm not sure if she's up for it.
And I want to give a little clarity about that, because our impression of that is based in her consistently displaying things that are questioning herself, and that's not a judgment, right? Because we don't have an opinion or a judgment against Oprah. She's great. I mean, we don't have any opinion or judgment against her. It would seem like she would be the ultimate, candidate to go, like you talk about the tennis game and who he's looking for. Right. That's Hollywood, that's well known, that has a stature, that has a presence, that's in the energy. But if she's not exhibiting that and she's not moving forward in that, then she's not that. And that's not my determination or anything.
And that
just
can change.
An expression. Exactly.
That can
change. Completely change. And from that standpoint, it's funny because, going back many podcasts, that whole I'm Oprah as a campaign is so powerful, because people still, defend and run out to the aid of Oprah. Yeah. And I know I'm going to bring it up and you're going to kill me, but I was looking at some of our Instagram stuff, and an ad came up, and this person on the ad was advertising for something and said how you should get rid of your vision boards, and on the very end of the vision board there was a picture of Oprah, and she put the vision board on a flame, and the comments were abhorred, that, oh my God, how dare you have Oprah's picture on that vision board, and now you're burning it, and blah, oh my God, and Oprah, and we never want to see see your Instagram account again. So these are just little people on Instagram. I mean, we're all little people, but people on Instagram that are coming to her defense about an advertisement about a vision board. And the power of that, and the description, and who people see Oprah as. I mean, it's true. Donald Trump has utilized who people have seen Donald Trump as. Whether they understand him or not, he could probably care less. Right. Which is powerful in and of itself. However they feel about him, he could care less. He's still out there doing the rallies. Instead of going to a correspondence dinner, he's out there doing the rallies, saying, I'm a positive thinker. I'm going to stay where it's positive. Right. And I mean, we went into the energy of that in another podcast, and to go into that energy and consistently go into that energy that propels you ahead. I mean,
and what you tell yourself. And the way he tells himself is the correspondence dinner is a bunch of blah, 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 negative, make fun, tease, bully. I'm not doing that. I'm not saying that's what they do. I'm not defining it. It seems as though that's how he's defined it, and it works for him. Right. And that's really, at the end of the day, it's what works for you. And again, I'm glad you made that clarification with Oprah. I would love nothing more really than to see Oprah step into that, because she's got this power that she's not utilizing, and she's actually stepping away from. I would love nothing more than to see her step into it. And a little bit of my saying this is not to badmouth her, because I've watched her. I think she's really trying, but it's like, come on, I want her to do it. Come on. But
And you know, it's funny because one of our constant premises is that we're always like, we are all powerful. Everybody, listeners, non-listeners, ourselves, we all have power.
Right.
We are all powerful, and it's about, encouraging and utilizing and working with that power and developing it. And, it's kind of sort of sad because she developed all this, kind of power and reaction and what she was doing. And, she could just be taking a break or whatever. Yeah. Yet, what a great way to propel that.
And we don't get the energy that she's in a powerful position at the moment. I feel the energy is like she doesn't know where to go next.
And it's funny, sometimes we've all been in, I'm going to make a little leap here, we've all been in this situation where when we're in something and we're kind of lost and we don't get where you got to make that first step.
Yeah. Yep.
And, there are many quotes and past it, what I'm not going to say, but, you just take that first step. And it sets you into a direction that all of a sudden you just step into your own power. And we've all done that at certain times, whether we keep it up and we're consistent with it.
And whether you win or not is sometimes not even the answer.
Right.
It's that you stepped into it and you made the decision, I'm going to step into it and I'm going to find out who I am.
Right. And that's a very hugely powerful space to live out of. Isn't that interesting? Live out of. Because as you're developing your inside and you're projecting it out, you're living out of it.
So I'm just, at the moment, the way the energy is right now, and what we've talked about, and we try to share with our podcast people, is that's the energy we're feeling. Mm-hmm. And isn't it interesting? It was a year ago. 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. April, same month.
Yes,
same feeling.
Month. And and it's hard not to, for at least for me, not to hear when I hear these things presented. It goes into an equation. It's like, oh my gosh, does that, does she realize what she said in that news report?
Right.
Does she realize if we make that conclusion, if we leap to it?
You're talking about Rachel Maddow.
Yes,
now,
because not Oprah. Because if we leap to that, well, maybe subliminally, I was hoping to suggest Oprah, but if we leap to that conclusion, because I'm not sitting there getting my adrenals tugged. I'm just flipping it on, going, what's going on? What are they saying again? The same thing? Like we said in the past, like a soap opera, you turn it on, same thing. But, if we leap to that conclusion that's kind of unwritten there, that's very interesting because it really just transports President Trump and propels him into 2020.
Thank you for listening to this production from EI Alliance. Check out our Amazon authors pages for books and podcasts, along with our Donald Trump and Oprah books for this series. Find great music by New Threads on iTunes, Spotify, and on newthreads.us.